Hey, you there. Thanks for clicking on my show. And are you a musician? Do you work behind the scenes instead? Do you just have a cool story to tell? We're always looking for interview subjects and guests for the podcast. Check out our description for contact info and social media accounts if you want to reach out. Thank you, and enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Nausea River podcast. I'm Theo Morgan, and I'm a recovering deathcore hater. But tonight's story goes a lot deeper than petty subgenre infighting from 2008. It's about the little festival that could. On September 7th, 2024, I went to the Tough Luck Festival at Brighton Music Hall, a two-day event of punk, rock, hardcore, and metal, though I ended up only making it to the second day. It was a beautiful late afternoon in Boston, partly cloudy skies and the perfect weather for shorts in my finest band tee. Clearly the kind of day best spent standing still in a queue or inside a dark room. As the early opening time of 5:30 approached, I wouldn't have it any other way. The crowd's entrance was slow at first. Although the sister venue of the nearby Paradise Rock Club, Brighton Music Hall is scaled down by quite a lot. It trades a fully open layout for a stage area and two smaller enclaves for merch tables and a full bar with some seating, though none of it is view of the stage. On paper, it's a venue holding roughly 500 bodies, maybe feeling redundant next to the Sinclair and the Middle East across the Charles River. But the layout changes the crowd flow quite a bit, and in this case we were not at capacity anyways. An opening for the pit was ever present on the floor, and there was ample room to walk around between sets without necessarily losing my front row position. For the start, I even stayed off to the side until Wretched Inferno took the stage, so I wouldn't be the only person standing with my arms crossed on the floor. Wretched Inferno, also known as the only band in Tough Luck's 2024 roster with a page on the Metal Archives. Don't put too much stock in it now, but 15 years ago that would have sounded important to me. I would still describe them as a unique entry in Tough Luck's second day lineup, and they're the only band I knew about before I committed on tickets. They're from Andover, north of Boston, and play pretty standard death metal. Music that's suitably gross and makes your fingers feel sticky with dry blood and urine. My mind goes to 200 Stab Wounds and Sanguisugabog as easy comparison points, aka death metal shaped by the hardcore scene, though Wretched Inferno predates both bands. I've seen death metal acts with musicians who've had trouble getting the audience engaged. I'm not a discerning listener. My true headbanging days ended either with an injury or turning 30, but I'll nod along to anything sufficiently loud and gruesome. I felt bad for small-time openers at previous shows like Morgue and Street Tombs. Fantastic bands, for the record, but playing to a less interested audience. On stage to play the right notes and bow out, I can't even keep a beat when I'm doing my podcast voiceover, so I still respect that a lot. On the other hand, Wretched Inferno walked on stage as a few small and very young men scarcely old enough to drink. Colin, their bassist and main vocalist, ordered us to get to the front. It wasn't a huge crowd, but everyone listened. On the album, I wouldn't describe the music as sloppy at all, only the visceral, gory imagery. This isn't a surgical urethral decapitation, leave that shit to early Carcass. But Colin frantically picked as headless bass, creating these buttery smooth tech death bass lines that oddly matched the onslaught of blast beats and disgust from the rest. His work on stage was some of the most impressive of the night. He wasn't out of breath once while growling, though their drummer was mic'd up too and doing the higher backup screams. And he still found time to tell everyone to open up the pit. I don't think the crowd was even big enough for a pit at that point, but a couple of attendees did their best hardcore dancing. And then the set was over, gone in a blink for a real fan such as myself. Around 30 minutes of music, and due to the strict 11 p.m. closing time of Brighton Music Hall that night, that was true for every band on the schedule. Wretched Inferno was my big draw for the night, and it was only 7 p.m. The rest hinged on cheap tickets, a gap in my schedule, and my neurons activating whenever I see an illegible band logo on a poster. I didn't even know what Tough Luck Fest was when I thought about it. As far as I was concerned, it popped into existence one day, only to spare me from going more than 2 weeks without a show.
Okay, now we're good. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Tell us a little about yourselves, both of you.
Yeah. Olivia, say hi.
Yes, hi. My name's Olivia.
Meet Asher Thomas and Olivia Monarch. Along with their friend Billy, who couldn't make the call, the three new college grads started the Tough Luck Festival this year as a true passion project. Before finding that out, I did wonder if the fest was a corporate affair in disguise, or, God forbid, even a scam. But instead, it was a personal dream that only came true as the result of months of hard work. That's the obvious answer, isn't it? Any live performance is a mini miracle, and the trio somehow had to make 12 of them work.
I went to Berkeley. Asher and I both went to Berkeley. We graduated in May.
Oh, okay.
And I've been like super interested in the music business side of like live music for forever. Been booking my own shows, been playing my own shows for a while, had a few bands, and then started booking for other people and kind of really fell in love with it. And I feel like that side of music is just calling to me. So then I've been, doing booking more seriously. And then joined Asher in making Tough Luck Fest. And we had Tough Luck Fest 2024, the very first year, and it was very exciting.
I can
And
imagine.
thank you.
And for you, Asher?
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having us on. I didn't realize that you were at the show until because obviously we didn't meet, but then I saw you posted a photo and you were like, "Oh, that's me, it's me." So I was like, "Oh, cool, cool, cool." Um,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
I was there, but only for day two. I couldn't make the first day work with my job, but uh if there's next year, I'll be much more open to it.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm
Hmm.
glad you came to day two. I'm sure we'll talk about it, and I hope you had a good time.
Oh, I had a
Um,
yeah, I think I'll just come out the gate and say it was awesome.
yeah,
It was a wonderful show. I think a very tightly done affair, like didn't feel sloppy. I could barely tell it was your first time. I thought that it was like second.
oh, well,
Yeah.
appreciated. Um,
I guess I didn't read much before all this.
No,
no,
but
it's
that's
good.
good. That's always good. Just walk in blindly. Like you trusted us. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the
it's good.
tickets weren't too expensive. That's a big one.
Hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's a big goal of it. Um, yeah, I mean, like Olivia said, we've booked shows before and we've worked with a bunch of artists in the past. Um, I feel like it's something that we have been doing for the last like 2 or 3 years. I mean, just on a smaller scale.
Hmm.
Like Olivia said, we both went to school together. We just graduated college, both focusing in music business and such.
Hmm.
Um, I went to school and I put all my time and work into artist management and uh, artist, I guess, just consultation and such. And then a few years back, about a year and a half ago, actually, I started Evil Eye, which is just a artist management collective that we're slowly starting to build and grow.
Okay, I didn't know that was you. I thought they were a sponsor.
No, so it's yeah, I mean it's we labeled it as like the lead sponsor in a sense of like, this is brought to you by Evil Eye.
Hmm.
Evil Eye is me, Olivia, and Billy. Billy could not be in this call, but that's a-okay.
Was she
Uh,
the other one on stage? Like
mhm.
when you,
Yeah,
okay.
when we did
So
our
I
little
can picture her.
yeah,
That's,
when we
yeah,
did our little brief introduction
yeah.
moment. Yeah, so the three of us recently, I guess, as a team started, working through Evil Eye and are slowly starting to build it up. But Tough Luck came from that. And yeah, it's our first year doing it, but we've done shows in the past. Like I've booked through the Palladium in Worcester before, which
Wow.
if you're a metal fan, you know that that's a legendary spot and they
Oh
do a lot.
yeah, I've been there plenty of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your booking history because I thought that maybe it was like more building up to Brighton Music Hall, which is a very, I'd say it's a pretty great place to end up, but is, a small venue. Always much smaller than I remembered.
Yeah, it feels a lot bigger conceptually when you're thinking of it, but
Yeah.
yeah, as a venue, I mean, when I've done stuff at the Palladium, we've done like the 500 cap room, which is the upstairs,
Yeah.
pretty much the same, just
Hmm.
balcony at Brighton. But other than that, it's mostly been like a lot of independent DIY touring, for the
Hmm.
artists that we work with, like everything from like, like a cruddy basement to a, booking at Higher Ground in Vermont, which is again like a 500 cap room.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with Vermont. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had a 500 cap room in Vermont. I
Yeah,
wouldn't think that the market's there.
yeah,
True.
Burlington's got a really great scene. There's a lot going on there, believe it or not. But for the majority of Vermont, it's trees, bears, and Bernie Sanders. So
What
Mm-hmm.
do you, I mean, just as an aside, like how would you describe the music scene in Vermont? I'm curious.
Burlington is great because Burlington is a place of jam bands.
Oh,
However, even though I don't like that kind of music, personally, it's become something more than just the jam band thing. So there is a lot of like alt rock and such, and even in Burlington, they have some metal bands, and there's a hardcore scene that's coming up. So, um, yeah, it's just becoming like an all in all music city, kind of like Boston is.
That's
So.
pretty cool. Because I would have definitely guessed punk had a place in Burlington because Vermont's a little more lefty than much of the country, at
Mm.
least.
100%.
How much work was this? I know that you said you've booked stuff before, but it doesn't sound like you've booked like, a festival. Or have you?
sure. So I feel like the conception of it, the idea of it was Asher, and he did this like you did this a while ago. It was in what, February or something, or
Yeah, when I sent out the initial email to Brighton to start kind of putting the pieces together, it was in February.
Mhm.
And then, just slowly building it up from there and putting all the work in as a team.
Hmm.
This is definitely like, yeah, I will say from my point of view, this is definitely the biggest show that I had the biggest part in that I've worked
Okay.
on. The biggest shows before that, I was either a performer, like I've definitely performed to more than 500, but I was also like a production manager for a bunch of stuff growing up. That was like ended up being more than 500. But this was like, it's just me, Asher, and Billy doing 100% of it. So there's a whole like talent buying side, sure, like reaching out to bands, figuring out everything legally with them, making sure people show up on time and everything like that. Then there's production that goes into it. Like, how do we get sound on stage? Do we like the people at the venue, like we trust them and stuff. And we ended up like literally loving them. They made our job so easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Um,
I've never had a bad encounter with staff at
yep.
Brighton or
Yeah, they're all like so good. And then there's all this like PR and media and press and like how do we get our word out?
yeah.
People know about
Brighton
us.
was I think just from the perspective of a normal person looking for shows, Brighton was very good about promoting Tough Luck. I got I got advertised it basically once they announced it and I'm like, okay, a bunch of unreadable logos, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There, yeah. No, that's
Yeah, at least for day two, because
Mm.
because Fridays in September are like I work for a college, so it's really tough.
Okay. That's cool.
That's when everything's dropping.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
Saturday I'm just like I'm doing the plunge.
Hmm.
I'll just
Yeah.
call it sick next
Yeah.
time. They can't stop me.
Yeah. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
worry, you'll have a year in advance calling sick, so you'll
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. You will have a year. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was a ton of work.
Comfortable disclosing how much it costs to do something like this just for year one.
I feel like probably not. I mean, Asher, it's up to you, but I feel like probably not dollar amount, but
Yeah, I mean, we can
Hmm.
we can discuss it though. I mean,
yeah.
I think something that would be a little more beneficial for anyone listening to this, that would be interested in, like obviously like this aspect of the music industry, would be more so like understanding where the money goes.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, oh, I just missed my turn. That's okay. A big thing. Um, I think the biggest thing that I hadn't dealt with before that I was not dealing with, financially was guarantees. Essentially, what a guarantee is when you work with a touring band, it's a certain amount of money that they expect, to 100% get from the show. Um, so, for instance, like Young Culture and Monochromatic Black both had specific guarantees that, like they're saying, okay, we're going to come out to your show, we're gonna promote it, and this is how much money we're expecting to get. Um, so that's something I'd never dealt with before, and I had never learned up until doing the show how the money flowed there. That's not an upfront cost typically, but it is a cost that needs to be taken into account based on how the show is expected to do and how it's expected to go. Um, but I think that a cool thing that makes our team really unique and individual is that we all have different sets of skills, portraying back to the world of live music that we are able to integrate into it. Um, so a lot of the things that I would in the future love to outsource would cost money, such as um, uh, graphic design and video PR, that kind of thing. We do ourselves, and we've done ourselves, and we made work just and we have people that we have worked with, like um, my friend Ian is a videographer who's worked with bands and shot their music videos, and I was looking for live footage to use from Brighton Music Hall for the trailers promoting the idea of the festival, and Ian was kind enough to let me use some footage that he took of a show that he filmed there, just footage of the crowd for completely free, and he just was like, yeah, just credit me. Um, and that was like any video that you saw in the beginning of like the audience, moshing, or people that we used in the initial like teaser videos for the festival. That's just video he took and gave us for free, and it was just using our resources. So a lot of it is the idea of using what you have, and obviously next year we now have footage from the show and photos, and that's what's going to get a lot more people to come out. But yeah, that the initial costs are just kind of putting things together for what you have to your devices.
Yeah, and we're lucky enough to work with Brighton. I mean, we like know and love Blake, the talent buyer from Brighton. He's awesome, and he helped us through like the beginnings of it because he knows that we've never booked it there before. And so that was lovely, and we learned a lot from him. I would say like the initial cost of this festival like wasn't too big. I mean, the only money we spent on was like printing posters for promotion, like to
Mm-hmm.
plaster up around the city. We paid for some like social media ads, but like barely touched that. And that was like the big. Those were like that was it because we're lucky enough that when Asher says like we all have different skills, like we really all do have fall into different things. Like Asher, like literally shoots like music videos and takes photos for like actual money, and like people pay him and they will like ask him like Monochronic Black just like loved his stuff, and like people like love Asher's stuff. He's just so good at what he does.
Oh,
Sorry, I'm gonna brag about you.
no, it's sweet.
He's so good at tour posters, any sort of graphic design thing you need. Like he's a little whiz. So everything, literally everything that was made for our social media page was all done by Asher. If there wasn't someone like that on the team, that would have cost so much money. And I don't know if we would have gotten the same
Yeah.
amount of attention. Like we really wouldn't have. And Billy has their own set of skills. I have my own set of skills, and we
Yeah,
both build in where each other left off. So I feel like
yeah.
that makes it stronger, you know.
Olivia took on most of the PR, which is something that I don't have a lot of experience in, and she also took on a lot of the sponsorship, um, primarily the sponsorship deck information, which is essentially just an outline of how a sponsorship um, partnership will work, essentially. And instead of outsourcing a PR person, which a lot of festivals do, on the higher end of things, Olivia had experience in that and was able to take that on. So, that cut costs there. And she reached out to, I think I remember one day she texted me and was like, hey, I just reached out to like 150 different PR people, which is like absolutely insane. Um, so, time is money, of course, but it's definitely a lot more fulfilling and worth it than outsourcing things, especially when you don't have a budget.
Yeah. And what we do always have like is time. Like you can always find time. If you're a
Yeah,
workaholic, like Asher and I do not sleep. Like if you care enough, you have time. So if time is money, then you can make a festival is all I'm saying.
yeah.
That's it. I think that's all very eye-opening.
Yay.
Before Monochromatic Black's closing set that night, Asher, Olivia, and Billy all took to the stage to thank us. Fresh-faced and maybe a little nervous, I knew going into the interview that the organizers weren't quite industry veterans yet, but of course no one stumbles into a well-managed festival either, especially one held at a corporate-owned venue like Brighton Music Hall. In short-term hindsight, leaving the venue refreshed and reconnected with fans of extreme music, the show was awesome. Location, music, crowd, and having the freedom to get some water without losing my spot at the barricade. It was better with more time to let the experience marinate in a broth of good feelings and me feeling stressed at work and wishing for more shows like this. Typical post-concert emotions. But in the moment, watching Wretched Inferno take down their equipment, there was a part of me that figured I would turn off my mind for the rest of the show and ask one of the venue's staff members if you can actually play pool at the pool table near the restrooms. I can prattle on for a while about pure metal. You heard me prattle on about Wretched Inferno. And you hear me do that for other bands every week. I don't even need a unifying thesis. I'll listen to hardcore and deathcore live now, but it's harder to talk about just due to a lack of familiarity with either genre, and even harder to admit what my hang-ups really are about them. But if I did that, not only would it be an insult to some hard-working bands, harder-working organizers, and even Brighton's own staff a little bit, it would also be a waste of my $29 sacrifice to Live Nation. I still don't know if you can play pool during a show, though.
Period. Yeah. Since I missed day one, are there any highlights from that day you'd want to share?
Yeah, tons. I mean, day one was awesome. Day two was obviously like great. Also, I'm just assuming we lost Asher until he I'm just gonna I'm just gonna trudge on until he comes to and answers a question. Okay, hi.
That's perfectly fine.
Day one was like awesome. The first thing that I remember getting like the most insane chills. Oh my God. Asher, please.
I'll be able to reconnect in a sec.
Okay.
Okay.
No, it's fine.
It's fine. Just it's fine. Sorry. Okay. Day one was awesome. We had been dreaming of the day. I can't look at turn your camera off. I can't look at you. Okay. Day one was awesome. We had been dreaming of Tough Luck Fest for months at that point. Like I had joined the team in like April. And then I think Billy joined like around the same time that I did as well. So we had joined Asher like early on. And we had like still had bands to book. We still had headliners to book. We were just like dreaming of what it would be day of. So obviously like both days are very special to us. Like genre wise and people wise, there were bands in both days that meant so much to us. But day one, because it was the very first time like Tough Luck Fest was real, we actually made it there. We're like at the venue. It's one of those moments where like your dream is true. And none of us had ever done something like that before. I have done production management at Brighton Music Hall for like a showcase earlier in like April, but that had like a lot more people involved in it, and it wasn't just like my brainchild. So I felt like this was like our brainchild. And as soon as Liam from Park National went up on stage, the first band, he was like, "What's up, Tough Luck Fest?" I got like the biggest set of chills in my body. Like I literally was beaming, and that's also Park National is like literally my favorite band of all time. Actually, genuinely.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
Magic.
So that was like magic, yeah. And then after we like talked about it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great because I definitely I like looking at more professional photos of any concert I go to or even the ones I miss, and
yeah,
it looked so fun. The room looked packed.
It was packed. It was a lot of people there.
Yeah,
I'm very proud of like our friends that were in the show, and then the headliners, Young Culture, and day two, our headliners were so friendly. But Young Culture, like as our first headliner, couldn't have been better. Like friendlier and
yeah.
They
like jumped out of their tour van and just gave us hugs and were so kind and sweet.
They were like immediately friends. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great because if you were to ask who's the friendliest musician you've met, like Tanya from Monochromatic Black, she was so nice.
Literally,
she was so nice to the point where I think there are a lot of people who didn't get merch because she would talk to you for like 10 minutes at the table.
Yeah.
And then they had to kick you out.
This is true.
Yeah. And like I had talked to her before, so once I got there, I'm like, we're speed running this. It's 10:58. I want
You're
these
like,
I want these fucking cassettes. And I don't want the embarrassment of being escorted out.
Yeah.
It worked. But yeah,
Yeah.
like yeah, every musician I talked to there for day 2, they were awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like very
Yeah.
humble, very very chill despite like, all the adrenaline of,
Mhm.
performing at, at a venue like Brighton.
Yeah.
Like
They all do this all the time. A lot
Mhm.
of them in the
True.
middle of a tour.
Yeah, some of them were on tour when they
True.
were, yeah. This was just a stop.
Yeah, so like this was like huge deal to us, and they like rose to it and like understood it was a huge deal, and
Mhm.
I think they all ended up loving it like so much and being like, wow, this show is awesome. But like
Yeah.
leading up to their performance, it's like muscle memory just kicks in. You do what you've always done, and they're
Mhm.
just natural performers. Or if they've practiced a ton, like it just looks like muscle memory, and it's like the stuff that they do on stage, especially day 2, is like so impressive.
Mhm.
It's so professional. Every band was like very professional. And
Yeah, like I didn't hear like a single flubbed note anywhere.
literally, it was
Yeah.
they're all so good.
God's Eyes, Wisdom and War, Edict, Slamwich, and Monochromatic Black, in that order. Maybe the linear narrative would grow stale. I was struggling to find a thesis for my own experience with this show. Summer Gloom handed it to me on a silver platter. Perhaps there is still a unifying feeling here, too, like chaos or nostalgia or camaraderie with other attendees. Unlike with Summer Gloom, I found myself talking to more people, from band members at their respective merch tables to a couple guys from Spencer, a town somewhat close to where I'm from. And of course, I didn't leave Summer Gloom with a fresh bruise on my arm from someone slamming into me, which perhaps was that festival's only flaw. Nostalgia, what an odd feeling to try and encapsulate. Some of it may have been the younger crowd. According to the few current Berkeley students who were queuing with me before the show, Tough Luck did a lot of promotion to students there. As Asher and Olivia's recent alma mater, it made a lot of sense. I'm not going to claim to be the oldest person there because I know I wasn't. The 2 guys from Spencer were older than me, after all. But I think even if you counted staff, I'd comfortably be in the top 10%. The crowd raised fists or the horns and revealed a sea of black X's on hands that couldn't all be straight-edge hardcore adults. So I wonder if any of them even remember MySpace, let alone MySpace deathcore, a microgenre that arose when I was becoming a different kind of metalhead in the mid and late 2000s. I actually even wondered if the members of Slamwich witnessed it either, but I can accept they may just look young for their age. MySpace deathcore was infamous for 2 things in my mind. If you were part of certain metal communities in that time period, you almost weren't allowed to like it at all. The Metal Archives either rejected bands in the genre outright, or they got accepted and then review bombed by the site's top critics. It certainly left an impression on a young fledgling like myself. It took me until early this year to realize that Job for a Cowboy was not a deathcore band. The hate for Doom, their lone deathcore EP, tainted them for that long. And I was almost about to write off Moonhealer, but I'm glad I didn't. The other one is that the genre could get misogynistic and violent towards women, with lots of songs about femicide and rape. Though I'll be honest, you can say that about a lot of metal, too. And clearly it never fazed me much. Slamwich walked on stage, and vocalist Frankie Paleo is one tiny woman. She and guitarist Andrea Jerez look like they walked out of a 2006 Hot Topic. So they get the assignment. All the breakdown, shock, and blatant cannibalism, but updated for the current year. And by that, I mean that foreskin fondant is about turning a shitty man into cake frosting. It's a bargain that pays off. Slamwich are a fun band live. My life experiences up until this year had been more selective, so I rarely had the privilege of hearing a deathcore breakdown up close. It's simple and primal. Slamwich even sell a shirt lampooning the 000 chugging pattern of it. I bought one and it's incredibly well made and comfy. There wasn't a wall of death or anything, but you become a slave to the beat, and suddenly Frankie doesn't look so small on stage. Her vocals are fucking powerful. No tricks like cupping the mic to sound more guttural, as far as I can tell. It's all lung capacity and determination. Is this what deathcore feels like to its fans? Using elements from hardcore to explore new levels of gore and disgust? As a teenager, I was told that was what made it fake metal, along with its hordes of scene kid fans. But when I write it out, it still sounds very metal in concept, just maybe fitting better with the hardcore bands in the lineup, too. It's hard admitting my shortcomings there, writing off a lot of bands when I was younger for the approval of forums that would quickly succumb to irrelevance, expired domains, and link rot. I had my reasons to think those boards and Facebook groups were the most permanent and important places on Earth, half as a chosen refuge from a truly terrible situation in my life, and half as the folly of being a stupid young teenager. But I think I figured that out before Slamwich's set. Wisdom and War, third act of the night, made me face some hard truths, but I'll lead into it by saying that they make some fantastic hardcore. They self-proclaim to have new metal influence too, perhaps it's what they grew up with. It's angry, throaty, and rhythmic like new metal at least, though more poignant and political with its anger like hardcore. Plus, it's the perfect music to practice your spin kicks to. Chanel, their frontwoman, wasn't the first to try and rile up the crowd, but she had the best success with it. She's in complete control on stage, and due to not having to play another instrument, puts it all into screaming and crowd work. Her tough look probably sells it too, complete with baggy cargo pants and a hat embroidered with CMHC. More on that later. Though it's all an act, she was a sweetheart off stage and the only band member to actually approach me first with an outstretched hand. What does CMHC stand for? Chanel was open about it. Central Mass Hardcore. A scene she championed from the stage to a bunch of Bostonians. And to me. Wisdom and War hail from Worcester, and I, somewhere north of it. While on the outer edges of Greater Boston, central Massachusetts has its own identity as well. A collection of former factory and mill towns that were devastated when the doors closed. People who you could describe as rugged, frugal, and loyal to their hometown. Or when you want to make fun of them, you bring up crime, abandoned buildings, corrupt mayors, and teen pregnancy rates. The roads are full of potholes, and the Nashua River flowing down Worcester County, our podcast's indirect namesake, is full of runoff and you shouldn't eat any fish from it. It's not unique to us, but there's none of the big city fun of Boston to lean back on, so we take what we can get. In short, central Massachusetts is perfect for hardcore. Why has Wisdom and War been championing it for years, and me only since they suggested it to my face? I mean, obviously it goes back to genre infighting and elitism. Even now I wouldn't sit here and proclaim Wisdom and War to be a metal band, it just doesn't matter to me now. Before I had a good system for regularly getting to and from shows, I had to prioritize not just shows for music I like, but limit it to what I truly couldn't miss. Not only did it mean ignoring what would get me judged by a dozen college-age maladjusts on a forum and hoping they would stay my friends, which they didn't, but it also meant ignoring smaller and local shows in general. If the choice is a gamble on local bands at Ralph's Diner in Worcester and Deaf Heaven at the Palladium, they're both equally a pain in the ass for me to get to, but I know I love Deaf Heaven. And that is something to truly piss off a metal elitist with. Sometimes it was as simple as having a party with friends on the same night as one of the rare metal shows in my local Eagles club. A lot of the time I thought I wouldn't fit in with the crowd because I deemed them not metal enough. I didn't exactly stand out at Tough Luck, mostly because I'm a shrinking violet, but if you can judge a concert attendee by their shirt, mine was from the Oxygen Destroyer show back in August. There was a guy repping Gore Guts. God's Eyes guitarist had a Napalm Death tank top on, which I count, by the way. And for open, proud death metal enthusiasts, that was about it. And yet no one was unfriendly either. When I felt social and chatty, everyone else felt the same, regardless of what they were there for. That's what I made myself miss for so long, didn't I? This social connection that pretty much is the reason small local shows exist at all. It's not just about supporting local musicians or having cheaper live options. I only say this because I read a lot of comments from teens and young adults now, sad that there's no metal scene near them. The more I experience, the less I think that's true, as long as you have an open mind about it. But then again, Massachusetts is small and dense, and I'm blessed with what I didn't even know I had. Not every act makes me think deeply, but I enjoyed everything that night regardless. God's Eyes and Edict both offered some no-frills hardcore. Edict's self-proclaimed Nazi-killing music was my favorite of the two, and their frontman took time out of filling their van after the show to talk to me. He was an intense showman, nearly launching himself into the crowd and dripping sweat onto attendees. And for one of those, he really did launch himself into the crowd, though it was a controlled, telegraphed stage dive, and no one got hurt. Monochromatic Black was another female-fronted deathcore act. As a death metal connoisseur, I ultimately preferred Slamwich's barrage of guts and meat hooks due to the familiarity of it. But Tanya, Monochromatic Black's frontwoman, is a joy to watch on stage, always moving and very short. I felt a head taller than her at the merch table. She's less guttural in her delivery, and the music has a touch of nu metal influence too in the bass lines, but it's all aggressive and varied. I really would disappoint that teenager spent all day in the Metal Archives forums instead of doing homework, but the music speaks for itself. It didn't become a fixture of my commute playlist, but I would be thrilled to hear it on a friend's. And of course, Tanya was a delight at the merch table, eager to talk about music and her band's wares. But I was lucky to walk out with my goods, 3 cassettes for the record, with less than a minute to spare. Tough Luck, Evil Eye, the combined efforts of Asher, Olivia, and Billy. However you want to think of it, they gave me a new appreciation for local music. That's what they wanted to do, after all. During the interview, I had plenty of material to work with, plenty to leave on the editing room floor. They were warned about that one in advance, but I can't think of a better way to close the show than celebrating even more local music. I asked Asher and Olivia for their recommendations.
I was wondering if you had any bands to recommend from the local scene that maybe didn't play Tough Luck or who you just think are pretty good.
Olivia, do you want to
I'll just write them
talk
down
about?
on an envelope.
What were you saying, Asher?
I was gonna say, Olivia, do you want to talk about a few bands on your radar right now, and I'll talk about a few on mine.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not saying any of these bands will be playing Tough Luck Fest next year.
Exactly.
But we're also saying they're not gonna, like, it's just bands that we listen to.
Yeah.
I have a playlist that I listen to every single day called Nobody Loves Me Like Boston Does, or Nobody Will Love Me Like Boston Does, or something like that.
Mhm.
And I listen to it every single day. It's all the bands around here that have really deeply inspired me and that are genuinely, like, hit my soul. I already said Park National is my favorite band. They really are. Love that guy. I also listen to Shiver. Shiver's a band. They're from Salem. They're insanely good. Like, they're going to be on my Spotify Wrapped, like, big time this year. It's actually kind of embarrassing. They're, like, really, really good. I also love this band, Overnight. My sister may or may not be in that band, but they no longer really exist. I just think that they have, like, they're just a gem of a band, and I have too much to do to waste my time listening to things that I don't like, and I listen to that band all the time. So I think those are a good 3. Oh, I love Hush Club. If you can see any 4 of those bands, well, you won't see Overnight because they're dead, but
Yeah.
no. Shiver,
Do any of them
Park
have
National, or
do any
Hush
of them
Club.
have Bandcamp links? Because I do. If
Yeah.
if a band's mentioned, I just put the Bandcamp link or an official site link in the podcast description and hope for the best.
I bet they all have Bandcamp.
Mhm.
That's just a thing that people do that all the time around
I
here.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably. Yeah, they definitely all have Bandcamp. I'm also listening to right now. I am helping Reja. We went to school together. She's playing Soundside Music Festival at the end of this month. And I'm doing production management for her performance there, and I'm listening to a lot of her. She's really good.
Nice.
Yeah,
That was wonderful to hear.
Asher turn.
Lovely. Yeah. I've definitely talked about some of these bands with Olivia before, but a few bands I have on my radar where my bands played with or playing with these bands. Halo Bite, they're this punk band from Albany. They're just a local band. They sound very much, in my opinion, like Gel, which is like a touring band I'm a fan of, but they're incredible. They're very good people, and they just absolutely rip. And then Gasket is this band from Baltimore. They're more like this band called Gulch, which again is like a hardcore band that was pretty big when they were active, and they're fucking amazing. They're signed to Blue Great now, which is the same booking agency I think or the same record label as Gasket, or sorry, not Gasket, as Gel and Code Orange and some bands like that.
Okay.
Yeah, Gasket is awesome. They're very good people also. And they're fucking, I'm obsessed with them. I think they're amazing. And then one more band is from Boston also, Actor Observer. Their vocalist Greg actually TM'd one of the bands that played this year at Tough Luck, which I didn't know until a few days before. But he TMs for God's Eyes, and it was cool. He did a little feature at Tough Luck. If you saw, did you see the God's Eyes set? I don't know.
I did. I was there for the whole thing.
So did you see the guy with long hair that jumped up?
Yeah, I was one. I didn't have any context to that, but I'm like, okay, good feature.
Yeah, yes. So that's Greg. He's the vocalist of this band, Actor Observer. They're kind of like a post-hardcore band. They're fucking amazing. I saw them play Brighton probably a year ago with Better Lovers, and just absolutely blown away. Such a sweet guy, and me and Olivia are actually going to see them in Salem next week at Moon Overfest, which is going to be really cool.
It is in fact this weekend.
Yeah.
I have this weekend.
And Shiver is playing that too.
Oh my god. Yeah, I wish I wasn't so booked this weekend. I know, me too. Because like I love getting random recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So would you two say you come from more like the punk side of things? Like
me?
Instead of metal. Because like I'm definitely coming from metal, and that's it's what I am.
Well, I definitely have like a more like alternative metal hardcore background.
Mm-hmm.
Like I grew up with like Slipknot, and I grew up with like Deftones and bands like that.
Mm-hmm.
Linkin Park was the first band that I ever got into.
Yeah, we've had like 15 years of people saying that. No?
I know, exactly, which is amazing. They're timeless.
Mm-hmm.
But as of recent, I've been a lot more into like certain hardcore bands and more of the like Flat Spot Records hardcore or punk bands like Scowl and Gel and Spy and bands like that. So yeah, it's a good mix for sure, and I think Olivia has a deeper connection with a lot of the bands she was mentioning, which are more on the like alternative rocky side of things.
Yeah, I'm definitely less of a like my hardcore phase, my metal phase is like my college era.
It's blossoming.
Yeah, it's blossoming and blooming. I've always loved it. I've always like had my favorite few bands. Like I've always loved Defeater. I love Defeater. Fuck, holy shit, always. But I grew up with like Radiohead and like also Kanye West and like Sade. But then my emo phase was like deep and terrible. Like it was so thick. Like I was so Paramore, I was so 21 Pilots, and like the first few like Fall Out Boy and Panic albums. Like that's my like those are my people. So I'm less of like the punk metal kid and more of like a sad emo kid at heart. But I think that's kind of like Tough Luck Fest at like its core, you know. Mm-hmm. It like caters to all those kids, you know.
Yeah, because I didn't feel out of place at all, and Wretched Inferno were awesome. They're the only one I was familiar with going into this.
Yeah.
I
love those guys.
Oh, they're so nice.
Yeah.
They're very nice.
Like they look so young, but like they had one of the tightest death metal performances I've seen live.
Yeah,
they're super tight.
A decent amount of death metal performances live.
100%. Their set was just fun.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah. I guess if I have local recommendations, 1476. They have this kind of like folk rock, art rock, metal, a little bit of punk sound to them. Mm-hmm. So I saw them live at a showcase in Providence back in May, and I fell in love immediately.
1476.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, we'll check them out. Sounds awesome.
Yeah, they're playing. Yeah, they're also playing at Ralph's Diner on October 20th, and it's worth going there.
Nice. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Are you based in Boston?
I'm based out in Central Mass, actually, but
okay. So
Boston's pretty easy. Boston's very easy for me to get to, and I appreciate seeing Wisdom and War. Repping Central Mass. Worcester is my closest city, but if you rely on the train, it's a pain in the ass to get to.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah, so I do a lot of shows in Boston, and
nice.
It feels like a comfortable enough place for me, but you know, I'm a small town girl.
Cultivate a worldwide taste like I spent most of my life doing, but appreciate the world around you too. It's more beautiful than you imagined. I'm Theo Morgan, and you won't have to drag me kicking and screaming to a hardcore show. Good night, and I'll see you in the crowd.
Did you have any other questions for us?
I think that's about it.
Word. Well, thank you, by the
Yeah,
way,
thank
for
you
reaching
for reaching
No,
out.
this was an awesome interview. You guys are naturals at this.
Well,
We're like so awkward.
we like talking about ourselves a little bit, so
We can talk, dude.
no, it's sweet. And you know what? Sometimes me and Olivia will fucking blabber forever, so
It actually gets better.
Having a good yap session.
Yeah.
a good old yap session.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We are quite the yappers. Yeah.
Quite the yappers. But yeah, thanks for reaching out. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
Yeah, and thank you for doing this interview. You didn't have to do any of this.
No, it's not hard to talk to people. It's just, yeah, like we said, it's all about time. So we appreciate your time.
We do, and we'd love to like grow. I mean, this is a new thing for you.
Oh yeah, it's a new thing for me.
We love to grow. Like, if all of us grow together, it's just gonna make everyone stronger. So I'm
God,
excited
thank
to
you
see
so
this
much.
when it comes out.